right. All right, so I guess I was just going to give you guys a little bit of update if you want from the council meeting and kind of the feedback on that, and then just start going over the survey and the responses and trying to put them in order of year 1 through 5. Does that sound okay? Okay, take that as a yes. Wasn't last Tuesday, but the Tuesday before, right? The mayor's administration presented in the Department of Ag, or in the Ag Committee, about kind of what their plan for the department was. And then Shane also asked me to present on like what our group has been up to. So Josiah presented for the mayor's group, and it was basically kind of just what Carrie Capoy had sent him. So that draft that I sent you guys that she had sent him with a lot of the recommendations that we had given them, but it wasn't as thorough. So they kind of just reported on that, but I was really happy to see that they included that stuff, you know, that we shared with them, and that they kept the integrity from their group as well. So it's kind of nice that they're sticking to the principles of the charter and things like that. The one thing I would say is that they are hesitant to hire people, a lot of people, because they say they just don't know how much they'll be able to do, and they don't think people want to apply if it's in between administrations. And I think all the council members were pretty on board with saying, like, you're going to need to hire more than a director, deputy director, secretary, and grant writer, because that's kind of what their proposal was. So all of the council members that were at that meeting were like, that's not sufficient. So that's good to hear that the council members know that we're going to need more staff at budget time than that, and they can, you know, hooey up for that funding and support that. Go ahead, Jerry.
If there's an administration change in November, does that mean that the people that you've been working with will be shown the door, and will be a new set of people coming in? Like, what sort of impact will that have on the Department of Agriculture?
So the council members that I'm working with are up for re-election, as is the mayor. The change in administration and council members would be in January. So there's like a 6 months where we would have the current, you know, sitting council members and the current mayor, and then in January, the last 6 months of the, you know, fiscal year, it would be a new administration. I think for the most part, I haven't heard about too many competitors against the council members. So I think we're pretty safe on that. I haven't, like, you know, but we don't know. Yeah. And then for the mayor, I think it's just 2 people running at the moment. It's Bisson and Victorino. So
and Molina.
Huh?
And Molina.
Did he pull papers?
Yeah.
Oh, he did. Okay. In like just the last week then, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, nice. Okay. 3-way. Exciting. Okay, yeah, so that's kind of where we're at with that. And Mike Molina seems very supportive of the department. I don't know Bisson very well, but I wanted to schedule a meeting with him just to discuss it. And, you know, kind of share what our group has done with him, just as somebody that's running for mayor, and kind of get a feel for, you know, what he thinks about it and how he would support. So that's kind of what it is. But the process for electing a director and deputy director is that they both have to be approved by the mayor and the council. So both parties have to approve for them to move forward. So that was kind of something that, you know, the council members asked about, like, do you think people will apply? And I think if people know that the council members are going to continue to back them into the new administration, and we have those conversations and put forward people that are, you know, qualified, I don't see a reason to replace somebody after 6 months. But that's kind of what it is. Other than that, the department has to be established as per the charter, so that won't change at all. And the legislation part, we're hoping to have done before budget starts, so that wouldn't change. Does that answer your question?
Yep, that's great. Thank you.
Perfect. So I presented the proposed code highlights, that sheet, you know, where we just took all the areas of need that we got the survey on, the qualifications for the director and deputy director, and the reporting requirements for the department. And the council members thought it was very, very thorough. They thanked our group for the work that we've done. They were very impressed. So, you know, good job, all of you guys. It's really amazing. It is much more thorough than what the mayor's administration presented. And I just said, you know, we've been doing this for a full year and we've done the community surveys. So when I presented that, I also showed them the agreement rates from the community, which they really appreciated as well, that we had done that community outreach and that nobody's been paid for this and that it's not, you know, biased or anything like that, that we're really trying to just get the feedback of the entire community and the ag sector to make it as successful as possible. So they were really, really enthused about that. I have a meeting with both Gabe's office, OCS, and Shane's office on the 7th, where we're going to start the process of putting all of that into the code. So it's been kind of hard to get somebody from OCS to help, just because they've been understaffed and had a lot of changes there, but we're going to do that on the 7th and hopefully knock that out. And then we have till March 10th or 15th to get that through committees and everything to be heard. So it's going to go pretty quickly. But when there's need for testimony and when those meetings get scheduled, I will send it out through the email to let everybody know, and probably even draft like a testimony template so that it makes it easy for people to send in testimony, and you guys can send those out to all your networks as well, so that we can have a huge push of support. I think that's about it. I did put those proposed code highlights on the website, so those are visible along with all the surveys still. And you know, let the council members know that website's been up the entire time. It's open to anybody. You know, we've had the meetings on there and it's been really transparent. They appreciated that as well. So that's kind of the overview for that. Anybody have any questions? Nope. Okay. I am going to share my screen and we can start this process. All right, can you guys see it?
Yep.
Okay. Sorry, yeah. So this is kind of the breakdown of who responded. Looks like we got a couple people outside of Maui County, but for the most part, we do have representation from each island. Of course, the most being from Maui. We have a good chunk from East Maui, about 8% from Molokai, and then a sliver from Lanai, but I'm not sure how much percentage that is exactly. Oh, 3.5%, so 7 people from Lanai, which is not very much, but I did send it to those groups, and Gabe sent it out through his networks as well. Sorry, I didn't see the chat. And then, okay, next one is, why are they doing it like that? Okay. Sorry, I think I want to, I'm trying to find out why it's not going in the graph form that it was before. Oh, maybe that's. Huh. Anybody want to help me troubleshoot this? Every time I've looked at it before, it gave me the responses in a graph form, and now I don't know why it's not doing that. Oh, there we go. Okay, so here's the different responses. I guess we can just go through them really quickly. This was for funding, so to address the funding needs. We actually kind of got some lower responses for the grant writers, but a higher response for the community-based ones and providing technical assistance. I don't know if that's because most people don't understand what capital improvement projects are, but like to do the databases and the larger projects, that would have been the first one. And then we got very high priorities to developing special and revolving funds, continue the micro grant program, and then develop equitable grant programs to fund agricultural operations. So I guess we can just start putting these in order of 1 year, 1 through 5, and we'll just go down and do that for all of them. Do you guys want to go through it all first and then go back and prioritize?
Would it make sense just to prioritize? I mean, to look at each screen and prioritize that rather than do the whole thing and then go back and reprioritize it without being able to see it?
Huh?
I think it makes, I agree. I think it makes sense to go section by section and then take our top priorities at the end and then rank them against each other. I think that makes sense to go section by section.
Section by section, okay, okay. Okay, so we can start with funding. So, you know, I just kind of want to scroll through. You can kind of see that they put the community put high priority for just about everything. So there is going to be times where we're going to have to say, okay, well, it doesn't make sense to do this in year 1 because this would be a step that you need before you can do the other things. But yeah, pretty much everything was a high priority. Okay, so we can start for funding.
That's a good thing.
It is a good thing. Yeah, I was kind of saying that before we started recording, is that you know, it shows that the things that we put forward were not things that could be done at any time. You know, it shows that we really put forward things that are going to make the biggest impact, and the community also thinks they're going to make a big impact. So you know, getting them done in the first 5 years is something that the community supports, and they see that they agree that those are things that are going to make a big impact. So yes, that is a good thing. Okay, so we'll do funding. Right, so we've got hire 2 grant writers for capital improvement projects, hire 2 for community-based needs, develop a special and revolving funds to provide funding for local agriculture, continue to support the micro grant program, and develop equitable grant programs to fund agricultural operations. So I would personally say that the grant writers would have to be hired first. But we could just do the 2 community ones first, the first year, and then focus on the ones for the county projects in the second year. Go ahead, Gary. Jerry.
Sorry,
Yeah, the continue to fund the micro grants, that's already money that's in the budget. I think the administration has like 1.5 million in the budget for this current fiscal year. So that wouldn't require additional like a grant writer at all. And I think the question is that the one in the middle, the develop the something or other special and revolving funds. So is the idea that those would actually be funded from monies that would be garnered as a result of the grant writers being successful, or would it be money that would be earmarked or set aside from the general funds?
Correct, yes, general funds.
Oh, okay, so those could both get done before you hire grant writers, right?
Yeah.
So I would put those as a continue to fund the micro grants. That's like easy peasy because it's already there up and running. And then to continue and expand on that is develop, I guess, ongoing special and revolving funds. So
Mhm.
I would place those as 1, 2, because they'd be pretty easy to do,
Okay,
but that's just my opinion. But that's what you're asking for, right?
yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
I
I mean,
would agree.
it could be that all of the things in funding we start from year one. I don't see anything wrong with that either. They're not things that are too extravagant, they're just development things. Go ahead, Gary. Sorry.
Yeah, I agree with Jerry that stuff that's already in motion should just keep in motion and encourage them to increase it. And that doesn't require a department to do. So, and then ongoing stuff and grant writing is both for the county and for external USDA and other funding agencies.
So do we want this all in year one?
Sure.
Yes,
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Yay.
Yeah, I think funding is an important thing, and putting it all in year one is, I don't know why that keeps switching back. Sorry. Okay, so the next one is water issues. So this one might be a little bit trickier, but we've got ensure the public trust doctrine is being upheld. Separate water restrictions by island. Increase water storage via reservoirs. Address water prioritization, delivery, water meters, and sustainable yields. Help property owners invest in water storage tanks and rain catchment systems. And then increase usage and projected use of recycled water and allowable usage, I think is what it says. So this is not what the department will work on. This is the department working in collaboration with the Department of Water to address these concerns.
I think they're all important.
Okay, so do we just want to put, like, make this one action that they start working on in year one?
That'd be good.
What was the second column from the left side?
Separate water restrictions by island. Oh,
So currently, if the Department of Water Supply from Maui County makes a stage 1 drought declaration, that may or may not apply to Lanai or Molokai, is that right?
according to like Jamie and them, it does apply to them. There is no separate restrictions. They're always lumped in with Maui.
Oh, okay.
And that was an issue for them because they're like, we have a completely different water system. Why would we, why wouldn't they separate those by island? So for them, it was a big deal.
Maybe a lot of people don't realize that when, we
Yeah.
have water restrictions, that it covers all the islands, not just Maui. So that would feel unfair to me if I was getting water restrictions when I knew that there was plenty of water.
Yeah, they don't have the same kind of infrastructural needs that we have on Maui. They don't have the amount of resorts and hotels and golf courses and businesses that we have. So, a drought for us, taking all that into consideration might be a little bit more significant than it is for them without, the the lesser infrastructure and things.
Right.
Okay, so we're just gonna kind of put all of these into like them developing an action plan and cost, and maybe put that into like, you know, high priority year 1 and 2. This is what they should be working on in the water area.
I think
Yes,
so.
I think that's good. I mean, these are all important issues that should get addressed. I don't know if I could choose one over the other.
Yeah, and I think it's a good time too, because, you know, they're just solidifying the WUDA, you know, water use and development plan and things. So this kind of stuff is really in the forefront of both the administration and the council's mind. Okay, all right.
Plus there's a push to, you know, have the county look into taking over the EMI leases, which would have a impact on those leases actually going up for bid.
Mhm.
So there's, this was discussed with Senator DeCoy at the Haiku community meeting this last week. And, you know, it's something she's very interested in, making sure that the water is controlled locally. So I think anything that's pertaining to the water that has come up in all these discussions is really high priority.
Yeah. Okay, the next one is invasive species. So we have negotiate with state and federal government to relax rules and regulations for the harvest and consumption of exotic wildlife. Develop a management plan for feral ungulates, rabbits, and fowl. Begin communications with federal and state government to decrease the introduction of invasive species to airports, ports, and via mail. And develop a certification course for community members to become approved hunt inspectors for introduced species. So it looks like the communications to stop the invasive species at the ports got the highest. And I think there are already beginnings of the like invasive species management plan, especially for deer.
It's my understanding that if there's a management plan, it has to be developed by the state, but it has to be different for each county/island. But once something is established by the state, which of course is going to take freaking forever, then that does allow us to access federal funds for example, deer management and stuff like that. And I think that's kind of a paraphrase of what Kai Kahele had said, is when he had visited here, I think last fall, he said, you know, you're going to have to come up with some sort of management plan. And when that's put together, then that kind of gets you in the queue for being able to apply for federal funds for that. Maybe Teresa could comment on that. We were in the same conversation about that.
That's how I understand it. Yes, Jerry, thanks. And we're just waiting for funding. Now we got the plan and we're waiting for funding and we're waiting for grants that the little people can get to instead of just the big guys.
Okay. So how do we want to break this down? Do we want to start with maybe the communications and negotiations in the first year, and then the plan in the second year, and develop a certification course in the second or third year?
I really think that certification course is not going to happen. It's, yeah, you know, it was something that was needed and government just didn't help us out on that. And I think if they relax the rules, then we won't need it. So it can be last.
Okay.
Is there something the college could leverage to help develop a certificate course?
I guess it would just be the Department of Health agreeing to that, yeah.
Okay. Is there any existing course that the college could just pick up? So I can take it to the college.
Not that I know of. Good question. That's great. And yeah, we'd love your support. We've had Maui Cattlemen's have had Hawaii Cattlemen's Association has brought in speakers and professors from the mainland to certify us in different areas at the ranches.
Okay.
And we've done it down at the college. Yeah, William
Yeah.
was our connection down there. We used the facility down there and yeah, it was great. Yeah, that'd be great.
Can you forward me any information I could research to take to them? Anything you can remember or whatever, I can just start.
I'll check with William. Yeah, we'll do that. I'll have to go find my binder. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So I've got year one is going to be the beginning communications with the federal and state government to decrease invasives to the airports and also to relax regulations for the harvest. And then year two is develop a management plan. And then year 3 or 4, the certification course. Hopefully we can get something lined up with the college by then.
I think that's fair.
Sounds like a plan.
All right. The next one is infrastructures. This did have a lot. Well, let me make sure I'm not missing it. Oh, well, the water that we're going to do the all in one. Okay. This. So for infrastructure, a full legal assessment of current agricultural cross sectors with federal and state agencies to negotiate and address agricultural issues. I did discuss this with Gabe and he was like, this is something that should be done right away. He's like, because we really don't know what we have the ability to take over legally. And I was like, the other thing it does is that if it is the responsibility of the federal and state government and they're neglecting their responsibility, what recourse do we have legally to ensure that they do step up and take care of that if they don't want us stepping on their toes? So he did say that this was a big priority that he felt it would be. Okay, and then this one is support countywide USDA compliant slaughterhouses. Support USDA inspectors for processing exotic wildlife. Support needs for cold storage and equipment. Support need for commercial kitchens. Support needs for processing, packaging, and distribution. Support community nutritional and food safety testing programs. Set up food banks in Lanai, Hana, and Molokai. And setting up emergency storage and food centers. So with this one, these are actual, like, a lot of these are actual projects. I will say that even though I'd like to see these done in the first year while they're setting up the department, it probably is not likely for them to move on much things that are going to actually require, like, you know, brick and mortar type projects, especially if they need to get funding to do so. So even though I'd like to see those in the first year, it might be smarter to put them in like year 2 or 3, just so that we're actually giving the department significant time to get set up and acquire funds and draw up blueprints and put out bids to get it done. But that's all I will say on that and let you guys They all seem pretty high priority, except for the one for the full legal assessment. So,
And Gabe thought the one about the legal business was number one.
well, he didn't see all of them, but I was talking with him. He was like, well, what do you think would be like a good start? And I was like, well, you know, do you guys even know legally where you're at? Like doing, and he was like, I think that's such a good idea. He's like, because when we talk to Corp Council, they just kind of say, oh, that's not our Kuleana. They don't really know where the overlap ends and begins. So as we begin these communications for like invasive species and for processing, you know, exotic wildlife and things, if these are things that are causing damage to the county that the county's ending up footing the bill for, and we can show that the state and federal government are neglecting their Kuleana, then what legal recourse do we have? We don't know any of that right now. The county doesn't really know any of that because we've never had a Department of Ag before.
I tend to trust Gabe on this, since he's, you know, been in process with it and trying to figure it out for himself over in Lanai.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if he's gone to Corp Council and asked questions and they're like, well, no, we don't really have any information on that. It's not part of what we do, then somebody needs to know who is in charge and how do you follow up, and, you know, are those people are really doing their job? You know, what's the recourse, like you said?
Yeah. And I know that we've run into that, like with like pesticide use bills and things like that. They just say, oh, you can't do anything with pesticides or regulating any type of pesticides, even on county property, because that is, you know, state, like,
Right.
you have no jurisdiction. But they don't say like, okay, if the county ends up having to foot bills or things like that, because now there's like these lawsuits, right? There's these lawsuits for a lot of the chemicals that are being used. So if that was mandated by the state that, you know, you have to use this, or this was the only recourse that they were given, where is the responsibility for those negative unintended consequences as well? So that's something that a legal assessment would be able to kind of help with. And I think when you're starting out a department that is like this, where you've got a lot of, you know, gray areas in between, it would probably be a really good idea to do that at the
Well,
jump.
it certainly sets the tone.
Yeah.
Jennifer, this is Debbie.
Hi.
This kind of sounds like a problem that it's not just unique to ag and being a new department, because I remember Ricky Hokama kind of ranting at the council about, you know, them having to fund a lot of things that should be a state responsibility. So it's probably part of a much larger problem that I don't know how we're going to address that. It's probably going to get to some point where the county's going to have to take some legal action to get a response. I don't know, but I'm just saying, I think it's a big problem, and not just for this situation. Thanks.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, you know, maybe that's because, you know, we don't have, you know, personally, if you were like running a business or something, or you had like a joint partnership with somebody else, you would kind of keep getting those assessments of, okay, where's the line, whose responsibility is what, you know, but maybe because it's government, we've never really done that. And to do that, to get the department like started off on the right foot, it might be the jump that the other departments or other sectors of government might need to do the same thing. Jerry?
I agree that that's really important to tackle, because that's a gray area. But let's take the deer, for example. I think a bunch of us think that DLNR is the one that introduced the deer here, so they should be the ones forking out a lot of dough for deer management. I have no
Hey,
idea.
you made it funny. Doe.
Oh. Don't.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Anyway, so it would be really nice to know if they're on the hook for the costs of managing their oops from the 1960s. But every month that we spend trying to figure out who is legally responsible, there's more and more deer that are being born. So it seems to me that you would want to focus in the short term on stuff that are decreasing deer numbers, and hopefully figure in the longer term, figure out responsibility in terms of paying the bills for eradication, because as farmers and ranchers, we got to get the deer population under control like about 15 years ago. And so, although I agree with Gabe that it's really important to have some clarity and on this moving forward, I think things like needs for processing, to be able to do something with the deer, just as an example, is important, because that if we start that tomorrow, that could make a difference. Whereas if we start on the legal stuff, you know it's going to take a long time. And the deer populations are increasing the whole time.
Okay, Teresa?
Hi, I agree with everyone. And yes, the deer are growing exponentially. And I'm also thinking the refrigeration for processing foods, and the emergency food storage, and the, one more, commercial kitchen. We have facilities that are empty right now, and we might want to just put them on the front burner so we can get the old Safeway building and the old Lowe's building, and we can do stuff. It's there, and we just need to add to it.
Yeah.
There's some facilities that are there that we could use.
There are, yeah, there's a lot of infill that could happen, especially in central Maui, and I'm sure there's other parts of Maui that have abandoned buildings or things like that.
Yeah, commercial kitchen, the refrigeration, and yeah, I think that should be on the front burner too.
Okay. So we want to start throwing out years. You're saying emergency storage, food banks, the processing, packaging, and distribution facilities, and commercial kitchens, year 1.
Yes,
Yes.
we saw, there were so many, yes, please. We sure do need the emergency food storage. There were so many people
Absolutely.
out, not working during COVID. We couldn't get our stuff here. And the shelves were empty, and nobody's, so many people not working. We need the emergency food storage, and we need the commercial kitchens and extra refrigeration. Thank you.
Yeah, I would agree with, oh, sorry, Barbara. I was just gonna say, I would agree with Teresa as well, especially over here in Molokai. We definitely, we don't even have a food bank, right? So we rely on Maui Island to send it over. And so I think for us in our community, when we're doing an individual needs assessment in the community, that's been one of the #1 things that's been coming up on the island, is having emergency storage. And the packaging and distribution for sure. Certified kitchens always is always a need. We have several that could use support, I think, more than just getting more. But I know that for Maui Island, that's another story. But I'm always happy to support commercial kitchens in general as a priority issue.
Yeah, and I think we put support needs for commercial kitchens, so it could be just increasing or introducing
Perfect.
more.
Perfect.
And then we did the same thing for cold storage. Okay. Okay, anybody else weighing in? Are we seeing things for year 2, 3, 4, 5 in here? Sorry, I know these are kind of hard to see because I have to go over them. I have to kind of hover. So for the countywide USDA compliant livestock slaughterhouses and inspectors, what year do we think for those?
1.
Front, please.
Year 1?
Yes,
Yes.
please.
Okay, So I'm just gonna be real honest with you guys. If we're putting all this stuff in year one, they're gonna get overwhelmed and they're probably not gonna do it. If we spread it out, you're gonna have a better chance of everything getting funded like over the years. But if we put everything so that we have everything in funding going into year one, we've got water going into year one, and we've got 2 different things going into year one in invasive species. If we put everything from infrastructure into year one too, they're gonna get really overwhelmed. That's gonna be a huge cost. So I
I
know
wouldn't
it all
push it
seems,
past year 2. I mean,
yeah,
good
well,
point.
so you're gonna have 6 months of one administration, and then that's gonna be a lot of hiring, writing the job descriptions, getting people set up in offices and things. So you might have like a good 6 months in the first year to really tackle projects.
That's true.
So I want you guys to think about that. We can put it all in year one, but I don't know if that's gonna be beneficial in a strategic plan. I don't know if it's gonna be realistic.
I mean, I totally hear you, Jennifer. That makes total sense. Like, I completely understand that. It's just like, how do we really navigate breaking it down to years then? I think that's the issue, is like all of it are priorities, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
how do we really say this is more important than something else? I think that's where I'm struggling with, where I'm like, yes, all of them should be year one, but I hear you 100% that realistically, we cannot put them all in year one. And even if we did, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So to be realistic, what does that really look like?
It's not an easy thing, but like, if we can find a way to really break it down into 5 years, it's going to be more realistic going to them and asking for that year one budget. If we're just saying like, 75% of the stuff we want done in year one, when we're having an administration change at the 6-month mark, and we're trying to get, set up in offices on, 3 different islands, I think we would be doing ourselves a disservice in the strategic plan if we did it that way. And I feel you, all of these are super important.
So would it be a different approach, perhaps, if we could look at it? I mean, obviously we all agree that all of these are priority areas. There's some that are more priority than others.
Absolutely.
But if we could look at it in a way of like, realistically, what could happen within a year versus within 2 years, because some of these things are right. And I think, Jerry, you pointed this out, like realistically changing certain things aren't going to happen that first year, but we could do X, Y, and Z. So I'm wondering if we could kind of switch our perspective and look at it that way, would that be helpful?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, because, as much as we, know that the sector has been neglected and we want them to jump on it, they're not going to. That's just the reality. They have to get those positions filled. They have to get them hired. That's negotiations with the unions as well. So there is that. That's getting the offices set up and purchasing the equipment. And if there's anything that has to go out for bid, they have to do the bid process too, right? So like, even if we're like, okay, cool, we want to do an emergency food bank for Lanai and Molokai, what that would look like, that process alone, just to get started, would probably be a full year of planning.
Is there a way, to break up some of these important tasks into things that could be tackled the first year, rather than looking at the whole thing and saying, yeah, we want to do this whole, topic in 1 year? Is there a way to segment it a little bit more so it gets phased in over 5 years, rather than just neglected or, pushed off for the second or third year? I mean, it's like a way to start a process that maybe, like you say, is going to take a couple of years to really pull off.
Yeah.
Jennifer, can I suggest something?
Yeah.
I suggest that we don't look at it at what can be done the first year, second year. Let's take that off the table for a minute. If we ripple sorted these or ranked these, if you just look at one versus the other, if you had one or the other, which would you pick? And let them ripple up accordingly. and then look at those in perspective of what could be done in the first year, and take it from there. I think we're just focused on the time versus on the value of the function that we're trying to accomplish. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, that's kind of what we did to get here, and that's kind of what we asked the community to do, is like kind of
Right.
rank them.
Right.
But then
now we're trying to decide what do we want them to focus on first, right? And that'll be the first year. So we have to resort these as to what will give the biggest value in return initially, and then what takes a longer time to get the ball rolling, so that could be a lower item in this sorting. Everything's high priority, so we got to figure out what do you want them to tackle first, rather and I think putting the year on it is really a constraining. It's not adding value to our sorting process.
Jennifer, this is Debbie. I agree with those comments. I was kind of going to suggest something like that. But the other thing, and I hate to be a naysayer, but honestly, I think the whole first year is just going to be spent establishing the department and getting everything in place. So I would
Absolutely.
not be surprised if we didn't get anything done in that first year other than getting the department set up and getting the players in place. So I think realistically, just knowing how government works, we have to be ready for that. So thank you.
Yeah,
On the
I
funding
agree.
part.
Yeah, I agree with Debbie. The thing is, we want them to know what should be a front burner and what should be medium burner and what should be back burner. And as they're organizing, they're going to be wanting to focus on. Do we want them to focus on water or deer, just as the first priority? And knowing that they're both important. If you had to pick one, which would that be?
Mhm.
Jennifer, it's Teresa.
Mhm.
Instead of doing year one, can we say in years 1, 2?
We could, but then like going to them with a budget or like helping them, basically what we're trying to do is kind of give the council members a way to come up with a budget that is reasonable for the first year, because that's how projects and people get hired, is through the budget. So, the things like when we were talking about the funding, those are all kinds of things that can kind of be done without any actual like brick and mortar. They're like conversation things, and then they're actually hiring of positions. So that's why I think that was okay for year one. But when you're talking about doing actual projects where there's, going to be labor involved, or you have to partner or find a location or build something or order parts and things like that, that has to go through a whole process of, finding the different bids and finding a location and writing up contracts and things like that. So that naturally will take more time. So if we wanted to look at it from that perspective, what are things that they can do with little to no resources the first year, or what positions can we put in place that can help build out this department in the first year? And then what are the projects that we would like to see starting to occur in year, maybe like the second half of year 2 and 3? And then what are things that can happen a little bit later in year 4 and 5?
So because this is Barbara, because the county is already, looking into water issues and trying to, really address some important water issues, and also deer control. So with the department coming online, would those responsibilities get moved from the council members that are working on them now into the Department of Ag?
Water is going to be with the Department of Water always. But what we were asking for the water portion was to have someone at the department begin collaborations with the Department of Water to make sure that the issues for the ag sector are being addressed within the Department of Water Supply. There hasn't really been a voice for the ag sector as far as water goes, and that's why we're kind of seeing like this neglect and all of these issues not really being taken care of for a long period of time, if ever. So that was kind of what we had put for water. So it could be like in year one, we want them to hire an ombudsman person for water, and we want that person in year 2 and 3 to begin collaborating with the Department of Water Supply and advocating for these issues, like something like that. Does that make sense?
But is that a full-time job for that person that first year? I mean, would it be possible to hire one person to kind of start two different projects, and then as the next year gets developed, I mean, the budget gets expanded the following year, do extra hiring so those people can be just concentrating on, like say water or invasive species or whatever.
Yeah,
I mean,
each year there's an opportunity to put more positions into place depending on the budget and the need.
So I guess it's just a question, is that person who's going to get hired to say work with the water department the second and third year, do they need to be full-time people? Or do they need to be having something else that they're working on that first year, just so we're not asking for funding for a lot of full-time positions, because we haven't really gotten through the list yet of all the people that should be hired or could be hired.
Yeah, and that's kind of like, I think that there is plenty of work as far as water goes and being an advocate and funneling complaints and compiling issues to negotiate with Department of Water Supply and collaborate with them. I think that it probably would be a full-time job, at least one, especially being that there's multiple islands.
Okay.
But so looking at it in that, or like Gary said, looking at it in that other way where you're just like, okay, what can we do the first year, and then maybe not thinking about numbers for the other ones, but for a strategic plan we kind of do need to set out years for it.
Jennifer, what do you think?
For me, I think that finding the things that can be done with minimal resources the first year, and finding what positions we want to really see in the department for the first year are going to be the things that they'll probably be able to tackle. I think if we're asking them to do like big projects in the first year, I don't think that they'll be able to take it on.
Okay.
We can ask, I think if we picked one big project that we wanted to see, if it's like, okay, we want emergency food systems to be put in place and we want that started in the first year, and we picked maybe 1 or 2 things that are projects that we want them to start focusing on in the first year, that's probably more plausible. But if we put all of it in the first year, I don't think that they will take it seriously.
Jennifer, do we want the department to have a couple of early successes and a couple of wins and show their value? Not 100% of the population's in favor of this department. So if they're starting to just immediately show some value in some areas, is there something that we could put in that first year that is immediate to win, and that just helps motivate and inspire them to do more?
Yeah, I mean, I think emergency food systems are something that I think everybody in the community sees a real need for. And I think that, you know, via emergency food systems, we might be able to even negotiate some of the stuff with the state regarding the consumption of, you know, like deer and things like that. So I think that would be a really great project to start in year one if we're going to start any projects. But I don't want to say that that is the main one. But I think as far as like a big community win, I don't know anybody saying like, nope, we don't need emergency food systems in place. And that's not just like an ag sector need, that's a whole community need. So I think that would be a big win for the department. I think getting positions in place and saying, yes, we want these positions, and then them having an idea of what they should be looking at in year 2, 3, and 4, and 5, is just going to make it more successful. So I would focus on that for year one as positions, and maybe finding 1, possibly 2 projects that the department could focus on getting their, you know, getting their hands into right away. Sorry, I'm just seeing a chat pop up.
I'm just saying that the Alliance would be happy to help support that for year 1.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of momentum already happening in the county for that. So it's something that they could be partnering with a lot of different entities. And so I think that it could be something that would be a, you know, maybe not, I wouldn't say an easy win, but it would be definitely something that they could potentially tackle in the first year to where they would have a success in.
Yeah, I mean, even if in the first year, all they did was secure the location and start the process of putting bids out for equipment and stuff, like then
That would be huge.
Yeah, even that alone, you know, might not be completely set up in the first year, but they could start that process. You know, I hate to be like that. Like, I don't think we can get this all in 1 year. I know that's hard to, you know, have you guys pick and choose what really is priority, but I don't want to see us go through all this work and then, you know, just put a ton of stuff into year 1 and then they don't focus on any of it because
Right.
they're overwhelmed. Jerry?
No, it's totally legitimate, what you're saying, and I support the getting an emergency food system in place, because I mean, anything could happen. It's not just us out here having something happen, but it's any of the ports could go down and the ships can't even get out. So, you know, everybody talks about being food secure. Well, you need to have a place to store the food and a way to distribute it, you know.
I agree. Jerry, you were going to say something too?
Yeah, I agree with Gary that it'd be really good if the department could get a couple of check marks early in their after they're established, because I think that will really you know, let the community know that that the department is for real and that they're going to get things done. And I also wonder, I mean, all these surveys have come back with a lot of great information. And so I'm wondering, is it up to us on the steering committee to prioritize stuff? Or is it something once the department is actually populated with a director and executive director, you know, they should take a weekend and go somewhere with all this information that's been pulled out of the community and go, what can we do? What would we like to do? What do we think we can do in the first year, the second year, the 5th year? So I'm wondering if, I guess I'm just wondering about the value of us establishing a shopping list or a priority versus giving them the information that is being compiled from all these graphs and surveys, which is amazing. You know, if you came into a new job and you had, well, yeah, these are the people you work for, this is the kind of stuff they would like, get going. And then, you know, those people who know their talents, they'll have an idea what the budget is, they can start looking at what would have the best impact in the short term, medium, and long term. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. And I think, you know, so I agree that they're gonna have to go through this and sort it, and that's why we're, we've always said we're gonna give them everything, all of the comments, all of the feedback, we're packaging it, handing it over to them, because that is super important stuff that they'll need to go through. But as we're seeing, even with the presentation from the mayor, is that they have not done that. And I don't know if they'll be able to do it as thoroughly as we did it. I mean, it took us a year with so many meetings just to even get where we're at with this. So I do think that there is a real benefit in saying, like, we have the community support. These are things that are really going to make an impact. These are the positions we want to see in the department first. This is kind of what we'd like them to focus on. Now, there's going to be details within that they're really going to have to sort out. But for them to just kind of like not have direction at all, I think is really going to be hard, because we saw with that presentation, it was basically just what they got from those, like, I think, Carrie's group did 5 meetings. And then the majority of stuff is what our group contributed to that. So, when you're looking at a new department and they're, trying to juggle the mayor's wants and the community's wants and stuff, unfortunately, they don't have a lot of time for planning. I know that sounds backwards, but they just don't. So the more that we can help with that planning process and have that support for them, I think it is really beneficial.
Okay.
Jennifer, I totally agree that it's beneficial. I think that what we can do is give them some guidance that what's short, medium, and long term in our impression, and again, they'll determine what they can do. But we're more of an advisory group here. Having collected all this information from all the people that talk to us or input, it looks like the short-term needs are food security, water, and deer. Just three things. Medium term, which will probably take longer to get to, are invasive things and ports and trash. And the longer term, which we think it'll probably take you longer to build the foundation for, would be A, B, and C. If we just ranked it in that short, medium, and long term, that gives them a lot of guidance. And then we can say, for short term, we think you're going to need 6 people doing these 4 things, and it's going to take $2 million. I think that's pretty easy to do, and that sets the foundation for their strategic plan.
Yeah, it could, but the thing is, like, so if we say, okay, funding needs are really important, we need that in year 1, and we want to start an emergency food bank, and we want you guys to start, the communications and plans for water and how to, we can maintain those. But if we can also hire a workforce development specialist for the department, and we can also hire someone to deal with waste management, a waste management specialist, those people that get hired and begin to sort through what we have already for them and start to make plans in year 2 and 3, they can say, actually, yeah, this is a huge thing, and I am one person, but I would actually need 3 more people to really target this. You know what I mean? So
no, I do actually. Yeah, you're right, because somebody who's going to tackle a medium-term thing is going to need to start day 1 anyway. Yeah. So we need to kind of give them guidance in terms of the function, tasks, and deliverables and value presented back to the county. But we also need to give them guidance on what it's going to take to get those things off the ground and how long it's going to take to deliver value back to the community. And so it's exactly what you said. We think that to do these short-term things, you need 4 people doing ABC. But you're going to have to hire the grant writer. It's going to take them a year to figure out all the things that they need to do. So yeah, day 1 has to be grant writer. Day 2, we can give an HR plan, because they're going to have an HR plan to how to hire. And we can see what it's going to take. So I think if we just look at what needs to be done when and what kind of lead time it needs, I think we've got we got a lot of direction for them, and then that'll help them budget and etc.
Yeah, and the Department of Personnel will help with the hiring. They're the ones that will do the contracting, for the unions and things like that. So they will have some help with that. But yeah, do you guys want to just look at positions that we want to see in the first year in each of these areas? And then, I think including the funding is great. The things that we included, invasive species, those are things that can, you know, be talks, be negotiations. Those don't take a lot of resources and can start in year one, but then focusing on things that would need to really, the planning process would start in year one and then going that way. Is that going to be more helpful? I know it's hard to be like, nope, that's more important than this, but we've got to do it. So let's just look at, so we've got grant writers, we've got 4 grant writers in funding. We don't have a position in water. Do we want a position for water?
If
I
I had
think
to
you need-
choose, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I just gonna say, this is Barbara, if we had to choose between water and food security, I would prioritize food security.
And I would add something like, we need a full-time food security person day one. We need a half-time water person day one, because it's just gonna take so much time to ramp up. So I think we can look at not only the position, but when do we want them and what is the ramp up time? You know, and can we combine a water and some other department interface?
Mm-hmm. We have, let's see. I thought we had food access, yeah. So we've got food access coordinator positions for each island. So as year one, we want to do all the positions. We can agree on that? Okay. So.
Yes.
But Maui County is gonna need, or Maui is gonna need a full-time person, whereas, you know, does Lanai and Molokai need a full-time person?
I think so.
Okay.
Jamie, can you weigh in on that?
Can I just say yes, please? I mean, I don't,
Yeah,
I would just say yes, please.
they have less resources than we do, and they have a ton more shipping challenges than we do. So they're actually more vulnerable than the folks in Maui County, unfortunately. So
Okay.
I think a full-time position for them would be great. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, what are other positions that we have in here? We have, let's see, was there any distribution?
Jen, have you tallied up how many positions are actually stated explicitly in this survey?
Nope, but we can do that right now. So we've got 4 grant writers. And then that would be 3 food access coordinators.
I think it would be inappropriate to advocate for an additional food access coordinator for East Maui.
I don't think so. Does anybody,
Also, let's do that.
does anybody?
I
feel
think that
would be
makes sense.
inappropriate? Yeah. Okay. So 4 food access coordinator positions. We've got a waste resource regeneration specialist. That's 1 position. We've got I don't think we have necessarily any specific positions laid out for the streamlined permitting process or inspectors, but we do need those. And then we've got a workforce coordinator position.
Aren't the inspectors warm bodies?
Yes.
Are they coming from another department?
No, we would probably try to hire them.
Is that 2?
I think at least 2. Yeah. I would honestly probably put it closer to 4 inspectors. That would be 2 for Maui County, one for Lanai, and one for Molokai. And the inspectors on Molokai and Lanai could also serve as like liaisons for the county over there as well.
Great.
How's it? Just call.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. And late to the party, but I've been following along. One thing I just would like to suggest, I don't know if it's in there, but one thing I've been advocating in all the departments is to have almost like a cultural resource perspective, you know, like a position for indigenous perspectives, because I think it holds a lot of value, a lot of generational knowledge, can solve a lot of the problems and issues we're facing. And believe it or not, politically too. So having some kind of resource, cultural resource, and then that could work hand in hand with water and environment and natural resource, you know, either for each island or might just be its own position on its own. But I just wanted to advocate for that while I'm here.
I think that's great. What do you guys think?
Great idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great idea. Thank you.
Do you think one for the county is sufficient to get started, or do you want to see one for each island?
That's a great start. I mean, if the ag, I think that'd be a big win for the Department of Ag, if we could actually value the mindset of the indigenous perspectives, and you know, and then other departments can follow suit.
So that
It
would
would set the
be
right tone.
11 positions, not including the director, the deputy director, and a secretary to start. I think that is actually a very realistic number to get a department started. I think that is close to kind of the amount of people that work in the county clerk's office. That's one of the smallest departments at the county. How are you guys feeling about that 11 positions? So that's 4 grant writers, 4 food access coordinators. We've got a waste resource regeneration specialist, a workforce coordinator, 4 inspectors / liaisons, and then 1 cultural resource liaison as well.
That makes 15. Yep, sounds
15?
good.
Jennifer, I don't know that 4
Yeah.
grant writers could be effective immediately day one. We certainly need to hire 1 or 2, certainly a grant writer manager. But you might say, you know, day 1 you hire 2 and plan year 2 to hire additional.
Is there a reason you don't think 4 is beneficial?
I just think they're going to be sitting around twiddling thumbs for a while until they really get some meat to work on. Can't be access deer meat, but it's there's just not that amount of stuff to do right now until we get the foundation's laid and they figure out where they're going and what they want to do. So I think they'll be sitting around for a long time. I think that's certainly the key. The manager, so to speak, would be valuable, and somebody to start researching grants. But I don't think 4 people would be. I don't think there's enough work for 4 people in the first year.
Jennifer, I agree with Gary. I think just in my experience too, and the grant opportunities, they come in cycles, so it's not like they're available all year round. So there's going to be downtime where that's where they would be doing their data research and kind of building up their database so that when funding does present itself, then they have all of everything they need to you know, write a competitive application. So you know, might be a way to ease into the department as well and kind of see how effective they are in securing grants too. So just a thought.
I will put my thought out there too. I think that we had originally said have 2 grant writers to focus on county larger projects. So community like impact programs and things like that. So that would be finding larger funding for like the food banks and things like that to set up those projects that are going to be larger scale and costs more finding federal and state funding for that. So that would be more focused on grants for the department to do more stuff rather than it all fall on the taxpayers. And then the other two, we're going to focus on writing blanket grants for the community. So like if ranchers need funding, they could find 10 ranchers that need funding for fencing and write a grant to get the funds to provide money for those 10, ranchers. Or if it was farmers that needed infrastructure needs, or they needed to hire more labor, they could work on community grants on behalf of our ag sector, and then also be there to help with providing assistance on grants when the community needs help with it too. So there was 2 and 2, and I think that there is actually a lot of opportunity. And then we also have to look at the ones that are hiring or writing for the department, and overall community needs, like infrastructural needs, will have to grant report as well. And that's a pretty in-depth process, especially when you're looking at federal grants. So I would argue that they would have a lot of work, but that is just my opinion.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I think if you write it as 2 grant writers and 2 farmer assistance people, so they're not just doing grants. They could be helping them with learning QuickBooks. They could be helping them doing multiple different things. But yes, there are definitely 2 people to do that kind of work.
Yeah, so we wrote it as hire 2 grant writers to focus on capital improvement project funding for the county via the department, and then 2 grant writers to focus on community-based needs and providing technical assistance, with 1 focusing on servicing Molokai and Lanai.
Sure.
Do we still think it's too many, or, I mean, I'll leave that up to you guys. I just wanted to make my case.
No, I totally agree with you with that wording.
Okay.
Jennifer,
Yes.
this is Ken. I don't think initially you need to have this workforce coordinator. The OED office has a workforce person, and that's part of a statewide network for workforce development, and they work with all the industries. So I'm just saying, initially, why would you have to start with somebody when we already have a system in place for workforce training and that kind of activities?
Do you feel like
you can develop it, but I'm
Yeah.
just saying we already have a county paid person that works on workforce.
so in your
Now,
experience?
it's not concentrated only on ag.
Yeah,
You
okay.
understand that? But to start off with,
Okay.
rather than have to have this position, I say you can do without it initially.
Okay. What do you guys think? Do you think taking that out the first year and going down to 14
Hey,
positions?
we have somebody with the county doing that kind of work.
Well, there is somebody at the county doing that. I think the Department of Ag would need an interface to that group. So, it may not be a workforce development person, but it's going to be a workforce development interface integrator.
You could assign the deputy or somebody to be on the workforce group, the state group, so they know what's happening.
It's more than what's happening. You've actually got to put plans and other things in place. So you're going to need to, the OED is already somewhat fully, they're working their tails off. And I think somebody to help them in the agriculture area would be helpful here. So again, I wouldn't.
Well, you can't satisfy everything on this sheet. I just tell you, it won't happen. I work for the county. I don't see all of this actually happening. Because number one, the mayor did not, he wasn't supportive of this department. So that already creates resistance on his side, possibly to not make it look too great, because he didn't support it.
Well, that would be really unfortunate if he did
Yeah.
that. Josiah did say that he was on board now because he had
Yeah.
heard the
Okay.
community
so
feedback. So we can hope, we're gonna manifest
can
that he doesn't sabotage.
I know you asked for the sky and hopefully you settle for whatever does come your
Yeah.
way.
I think that's a fair assessment. Kenneth, what do you guys think? Do we want to leave the workforce coordinator position in? Do we feel like OED is already overwhelmed? Do we want to say maybe that can wait till a later year and drop down to 14 positions besides the secretary, director, and deputy director?
Jennifer, this is Debbie again. So I was just listening to all the conversation. So perhaps the best thing is just leave everything what we think we need and you get what you get. No, you're not
Right.
probably going to get everything. But, you know, when I worked for Gladys, her famous saying to me was, if you don't ask, you don't get. So that's just a thought. I kind of flipped my position after listening to everybody, but you know, it doesn't hurt to ask. I agree. I don't think we're going to get all of this, but you know, we can try. Anyway, thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, no, and I think these discussions are great. This is what needs to happen. So
we typically plan to ask for twice and expect to get half.
I
So
like
I would
asking for it all
leave
and
that
getting.
position in.
Okay, so leave it on. Jerry, what do you think? You've got your hand raised.
Yeah, I had two comments. I really like what Koa mentioned about having the cultural connection because before any of us were here, the Hawaiians were farmers and they always will be farmers. And I think that's a really good thread to keep going with the Department of Agriculture. And I think also there had been discussion, and I'm not sure how it fits into a position per se, to have someone who is like an ombudsman, because there are things where there's a clash between county regulations, whether it's real property and taxation, whether it's the planning department, and farmers trying to do their best to actually farm. And sometimes you run into issues that commonly cost the farmers a lot of time and money to fight on their own. And so if the department actually had like a person in the ombudsman position who would be the interface between the county and an individual in the agricultural industry, that could really save a lot of us a lot of heartache in having to deal with planning department or the Department of Health or something like that, because sometimes regulations are made without really considering the impact that it has on individuals. And then when an individual has to go and try to, shake down the Department of Health or real property or the planning department, things can get ugly in a hurry. And if you don't have any support, you're just kind of hung out to dry. So it'd be kind of nice if there was someone, I don't know if it would be a part-time thing or how it would be structured, but there's been more than once that people at the Ag Working Group and the Maui Coffee Association, we thought, wouldn't it be great if there was an ombudsman who could actually handle this on behalf of people in the ag sector?
So what if we listen to Kenneth and we say maybe we hold off on the workforce coordinator position and we kind of do the ombudsman person to kind of, lobby against harmful regulations at the State Department? What do you guys think of that?
Agree.
Agree.
Okay.
I have a comment. I'm not sure OED has the bandwidth to take on another issue, another department. I think they're already stretched really thin, and that it would be, if they had to take it on, it wouldn't be something that would be a high priority for them as much as it would be if there was someone from the department who was interfacing with OEG. That's my opinion. I don't think that, I think that person's important and maybe they do something else as well, but I wouldn't necessarily just not ask for funding for that person.
Anybody else?
It's an election year, so we don't know who our next mayor will be.
Lauren? Got your hand up?
Thank you. Sorry, I forgot I still had it up, but I just wanted to second that, this list is the priorities that we sorted through. I think we need to provide this full list, obviously ranked, but if you think we need to provide this full list to the new DoA, it's something that the community can use for our monitoring and evaluation of their progress to see what they've moved on. And I would say that every single one of these issues, especially since our community has voted that they are priorities, really this whole list needs to go. So I think that while we do need to rank our priorities, I wouldn't censor and cut out anything.
Okay.
Thank you.
So do we want to keep the workforce coordinator position and the OMSBA person asking in the first year for both of those positions?
Could they share the
Agreed.
position?
Yeah, I don't see why they couldn't.
I think we might have more chance getting it funded if they weren't two full-time positions. If it was someone that was, splitting their job title into doing both of those things.
Okay. Well, we could say that we want the OMSBA person to work on regulations and then also developing, the needs for the workforce development as well. Yeah. Were you okay with that?
Great.
Okay.
Agree.
All right, so we've got the positions. That's 15 positions, not including the director, deputy, and secretary that we're going to ask for. Year one. Okay, and then I think we're still okay on funding, putting those things into year one. They're not really like anything brick and mortar. Maybe the cultural liaison can start, working on the water stuff with the Department of Water Supply. I think that would be a really great thing for them to work on. So I think we could leave that into year one. We've got the invasive species stuff, year 1, year 2, and 3 and 4 for the certification course. So now going back to infrastructure, I think everybody agreed to do the emergency food, emergency storage and food centers, and the food banks in Lanai, Hana, and Molokai are the things that we wanted them to focus on as projects for the first year.
Agree.
Yes.
Okay, so now for the other ones, let's go over, do we just want to, have these start in like year 2 and 3 and 4 and go from there? Do you guys feel comfortable doing that, or do we not want to do it that way?
I'm okay with that.
Okay. I'm going to read through them again. So we've got the full legal assessment of current agricultural cross sectors with federal and state agencies to negotiate and address ag issues. We've got the support USDA countywide compliant slaughterhouses. Support USDA inspectors for processing exotic wildlife. Support needs for cold storage and equipment. And the needs for commercial kitchens, processing, packaging, and distribution. Nutritional and food safety testing programs, and then those ones we've already got. So I think the other ones you guys said were the commercial kitchens, the processing, packaging, and distribution facilities, is that, and the cold storage?
Somewhere around 2 or 3.
2 or 3 for those, Jerry?
Yeah, the whichever one it was that was the slaughterhouse, I think it was 2 or 3 from the left.
Yep, right there.
Yeah, so we're on like the last legs for the 2 publicly accessible slaughterhouses on the island, right?
Yeah.
Both Nakasone and Decoit are kind of teetering on the brink. And the County Economic Development Strategy, which is called CEDS, it's being renewed this year. And that's modern slaughterhouse modernization and compost were the two top agricultural priorities in that document. And what that does is it means that you're queued up to be able to access federal funding pretty easily. Not that you necessarily get it. So I'm just saying that from the slaughterhouse perspective, that might be an easy target within, say, year 2, because the CEDS document will be established. And that would be the type of thing that just might allow us to rejuvenate either existing slaughterhouses or get some other ones available, because there's a pretty large segment of the community that uses those that aren't going to be able to use them when the people that run them decide to retire. And so that's just something where the stars are seemingly starting to align in terms of funding and the strategy perspective. So if that wasn't going to be year 1, I definitely say it should be year 2 or 3 as something that could get done.
Okay.
I agree.
I agree.
Okay, so inspectors and slaughterhouses is going to be year 2. Do we want to do the cold storage, the support for cold storage, processing, packaging, distribution, and equipment and commercial kitchens in year 3?
Sure.
But don't you think if you're if we're moving the slaughterhouse priority into year 2, that all those other things go with it?
Well, processing, packaging, and distribution, they already kind of have that through the slaughterhouses. So this would be other.
Okay.
types of- and then the food safety testing, can we put that in year 4?
Sure.
And then where do we want to put the legal assessment? Do we want that to be ongoing from the start? It doesn't really take much. That's something that the director could be in negotiations with the like Corp Council and stuff about. Or do we want to move that to like year 4 or 5?
I think keep it in year 1 and get it going.
Anybody else? Means
I think I agree with that too. Somebody got to be paying attention from year 1.
okay. All right, we are through that. Okay, and workforce development. So we've got develop programs to increase on-site farm housing, and develop programs to support and increase agricultural related industries, occupational skills, training, and educational opportunities, and gather data on obstacles that prevent farm workers from being paid livable wages and incentives to mitigate that.
I think the on-site farm housing is, I would say that would be year 1 or 2. Probably I'd put it to year 2, but that should be, in collaboration with the planning department and things that they're going to do on changes to the sizes and numbers of ohanas on ag land, things called the cluster bill, which unfortunately is stalled, but is really important for preserving ag land and creating housing for farmers that are actually going to be on the farm. So I think I would say after getting a workforce coordinator position, developing programs to increase on-site farm housing would be the next priority.
Okay, does everybody agree?
I think that's really important.
Agree.
Okay, and then, so we'll put that in year 2. Do we want to see as much as I am for livable wages, I think that's something that could get pushed out a little bit, especially because we have those bills at the state that are talking about increasing minimum wage too. How do we feel about pushing that out to maybe year 4 and then doing the programs to support, you know, the actual workforce development in year 3?
I agree.
I
That's
agree.
fine.
Okay. All right, we've got that one done. You guys are awesome. I'm so thankful for all of you. Okay, research and development needs for the department. So this is develop the capacity for research and development within the department. So I think that was kind of where we were asking for there actually to be a division where they have to research and stuff. The next one was create a database for ag businesses to be connected with available resources. Develop a streamlined county permitting process for agriculture. Collect and collate the data needed for the Department Ag Sector and Research needs. Develop benchmarks to begin meeting minimum local purchasing goals and implement at the county level. And develop thresholds to transition from eradication to management of invasive species using environmentally friendly methods.
Jennifer, can you hover over 3, please? The third one.
Yes, that's the streamlined permitting process.
Number 1, year 1. Thank you.
I agree, that is
Really important.
absolutely. I think developing the ability for the department to do research and development is something that could definitely go in year 1 and 2. What do you guys think? Maybe year 2?
Yeah.
Year 2.
You probably needed year 2 because you have to figure out what type of research you want conducted so that when you hire somebody, they can do that type of work.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, currently, the agricultural research is done, the county provides, well, has in the past provided about $100,000 to CTAR. So CTAR's extension agents submit proposals for research. So all of the specialties, livestock, agriculture, landscape, they propose projects. So it's not like we're doing no projects at all.
Correct, yeah.
So I'm just saying it can be year 2 or 3. You have to figure out what type of research you want and what kind of person you're looking for that can accommodate that research.
Yeah, I
And
think
you have to decide, well, you know, like extension has Dr. Kairos. He's probably overqualified, but do you want people with at least master's degrees in whatever specialty you're researching?
hopefully.
I mean, you know, you can go higher, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, I think the need for the department to have the research and development was, one, to create the databases that are needed to be able to look at new technology and things like that that can be used on a county level, especially as we're doing infrastructural needs and things like that, to make sure that we've got kind of state-of-the-art stuff that's going in and not outdated stuff that doesn't make sense. And then I think there was this one, where is it? This one is kind of something else that they would be doing is, and this is where like partnering with UHMC and stuff would come into play. So, okay, what are things that the department can research, but then also what are things that we can outsource to UHCTAR and UH and other agencies that do research as needs that they can kind of look into?
Well, the state does collect data. The question is, the funding has been cut. So we used to have, for example, a crop enumerator on Maui. I think they eliminated all the enumerator positions. So this is something that you could argue the state should be doing, not necessarily the county, but I understand why you gather it. Okay, it does benefit us. I'm just saying it's something the state should be doing a better job at.
Oh, God, we could go on the list of the things that the state should be doing a better job on.
They don't have the money. It's not like they don't want to do it. They have a cut in funding.
Yeah,
And
well,
there
yeah,
you go.
yeah.
I just saying.
No, I think we all thoroughly agree with you that there's a lot of things that they should be doing, and the research and increased research and better research is one of
Oh,
them.
yeah.
But unfortunately, we can't force them to. But we can do it, and we can create jobs, and we can employ our people. Go ahead, Jerry.
I see a lot of overlap between item number 3, develop and streamline permitting processes for agriculture, and an ombudsman.
Yeah.
So that, that person could be doing double duty where they become really familiar with the permitting at both the state and county levels, and then they become the champion to help us so that we can stick handle through the miasma of permitting.
Yeah, I think the director and deputy will have a big hand in this as well, and probably the managing director for the county, to create a streamlined permitting process so that it's not on the ag sector to go to all the different departments separately and
Right.
have all the different words of mouth. So I think the ombudsman person and the director and deputy director will have a huge part in this portion. Okay, so back to that, we've got this one. We've got the streamlined permitting process. How do we feel about creating the database to connect ag businesses with available resources? Do we want to see that in year 3?
Yeah, I would say year 2 or 3, so that, incoming farmers it would be like a clearinghouse, so they could understand what resources are available to them.
The county and the state have data books. Now, it's not like last year's data, but it may be 2 years behind, but they do have data collection.
Yeah, I think this is also like, who do you call for this? Who do you call for that? Like databases with all of that information for the community to utilize. So you can kind of call around and try to figure out who does what, but there's no like all overarching database that has all of that included, and who, like all of the different ag programs and all of the different ag resources. So I think that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Do you know of anything like that, Kenneth?
That's something maybe the ombudsman should do.
Okay.
What's
Jennifer,
available?
Jennifer, there's something like that in the booklet. It's called "Do You Want to Start a Business in Maui County?"
Yeah.
But we want to have a parallel thing. Do you want to start a farm, or do you want to run a farm? That would have all that stuff. It's a 100-page booklet or so. Very valuable.
Okay. Yeah, hopefully we can get it in a digital format too.
Yeah. It is digital, but it's
Okay.
Yeah, you would think that the FAM program or the Go Farm program would have that already collated, so that people that take those programs would know what types of resources are out there for them.
yes, you would think.
Jennifer,
I can ask my daughter and son-in-law. They went through the Go Farm program, so I could certainly ask them about that.
Yeah, I think there's bits and pieces of it everywhere,
Yeah.
but to put it into one big database. Was that Koa? Were you trying to say something?
Now, are we talking about like a directory here? Of
Yeah,
all
pretty
available
much. Like, yeah.
resources? I think that's needed. I don't know how soon. I mean, yesterday would be good. Especially if you want to entice and inspire new young farmers, we got to know that they have support there. And that's what I talked to the mayor about last year. I was like, there's a lot of new development, especially pivoting through COVID. A lot of people want to grow their own food, and they just don't have one stop place to go to learn about the resources that are available. And then at the same time, how to start. But a directory is much needed.
Okay, absolutely. So do we want to put that in year 2, or do we want to put that in year 3?
I think year 2.
Year 2? Okay.
Please.
All
The
right.
extension The extension service does have a master farmer program, so you learn a lot of things.
Yeah, but that's only available if you're going
No,
through the
but
program,
yeah,
isn't it?
but they also have the ag program and the FAM program for new, younger people.
I think
I
there's been
think
a lot
one
of
the
stuff
issues-
that's come, oh, go ahead, Koa.
No, I think one of the issues I found out with that is their outreach. You know, who they're reaching out to. I ran my own cohort the last 3 years, and all these guys are, you know, having a hard time finding a one-stop place to find all these resources. So I don't know. So I grumbled with them about who they're reaching out to, and you know, if the farmer got to go and look, how do you start? Where do you look? I mean, I think that we could be really helpful in the department to have an easy, accessible
I still
place.
say that's
It's
a
a
job for the
dream. But
ombudsman.
Yeah, there's a lot of information out there and it's been changing over the past couple of years. And if we could get it in one place, that would be ideal. Like we look at, you know, here we're trying to look exactly that, like a one-stop shop, right? So, you know, new beginning farmers can like, who can they reach out to where all the resources are in one place? Sure, they can get connected with Go Farm, FSA, like there's a bunch of different ways that they can like access the information, but it's not in one location. And that's been a number one thing that we keep hearing over and over again of like how it's really hard for farmers to get started because they don't really have they don't know where to go to. They've got to go to like 6 different websites or different like entities. And so if they could go to one place, kind of see what they need, have it outlined, I think it'd be it's critical actually for the younger generation.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got that in year 2. We've got, let's see. The research needs is this one. So do we want to do maybe collate and collect the data needed for the department ag sector and like research needs? So maybe that is where we start kind of really breaking it down into, okay, now we've got this ability for the department to do research and development. We started with the database. Now, what else can we branch off to UHMC or other organizations to do the research and collect the data needed for different things? We want to put that in maybe year 3 or 4. And then there's
Yes.
also, okay. So we'll do year 3 for that. And then for the minimum purchasing power and then the transition from eradication to management, what years do we think for those 2?
3.
Year 3 for all of that? I think I personally would be okay with those going a little bit longer term because those are things that are going to take quite a bit of research to create like transition benchmarks for eradication to management, and then also putting in place the minimum purchasing power and how that would overlap with the state and what their goals are and what their current status is.
That's fine. Fine with me.
Do we want to do those ones in year 4 and 5?
4 and 5, you're right. It's going to take a long time to go from eradication to management. It's going to be over 5 years for sure.
Okay. All right.
Almost another 5 years.
Okay, we're on to education. So we've got educate and advocate for best agricultural practices for watershed restoration and protection. Develop educational agricultural programs to inform the public of allowable ag activities and best agricultural practices. Those ones kind of overlap. Support the P20 state legislation to include ag and science in all K-12 programs. Collaborate with the state to ensure real estate agents learn the zoning laws for agriculture. Support opportunities and initiatives for community gardens, educational programs, including leasing of county-owned land, and provide education on the water use and development plan and ag-related water issues.
The P2 and the community gardens are the same thing, right?
No, P20 is for education in K through 12 Department of Education classrooms. community gardens are community gardens. They're not necessarily Department of Education gardens.
What was that ABC and a number from somebody in the mainland, and he started those gardens? There was community gardens in the city.
Pea patches.
Oh, P patches. I was like, ABC, what?
Thank you. She understood me.
Okay.
I was thinking that was P2. I was like, what?
No,
Okay.
pea patches. They're very popular in the neighborhoods.
Yeah, community garden, same thing. Okay.
Okay, so do we want those two to be in year one?
Sure,
Or
those seem like they'd
actually
easily-
probably year 2 or 3, not year 1. I'm sorry, you guys.
Yeah, I'm thinking 2 or 3. It's gonna take a while to pull those together because you're gonna need to find the land, you're gonna need to get water, you're gonna need to have someone manage it. It's definitely doable, but it's gonna take a little while to get it set up.
Okay, so do we want to push those back to like year 3, 4?
Sure,
Okay,
but the support ones can go way up front because we're just supporting. It's like we're just advocating for. Try hover over the support guys again.
that's the support P20 legislation. So do we want to move that up?
Yeah, we're just advocating for that. We just agree. We're carrying the flag, and the other support one.
Support opportunities and initiatives for community gardens and educational programs, including the leasing of county-owned land.
But I would say year 2. 2, 3. Probably 2.
Okay, so we're going back up to 2 or 3 for community gardens.
Well, we're supporting the opportunities and the initiatives. So, I mean, in year 2, it might get rolling and then it would happen in year 3. I mean, I don't know if it can happen in the 1 year, it starts to become addressed.
Okay. All right, I can put those in queue. And then for the education I mean, both of these are kind of education for best educational practices and allowable ag activities. We could kind of combine those and put those starting, when do you guys think?
No later than year 2. And ideally 1.
What?
Jerry, are you raising your hand because you have something you want to
Jerry.
say, or?
Yeah, you guys, if I can only switch between 4 people at a time, so if you you gotta just speak up. I'm sorry.
Okay, this is Jerry.
Okay.
The item number 4, collaboration with the real estate agents. You know, I have to say that got to be year 1 or year 2 because every year, every month, more ag land is being sold to people, and they don't understand what their responsibility is to do agriculture on ag zone land. The planning department seems to have pretty but they do not enforce them. And real property and taxation doesn't care because they're raking in dough off of people that pay higher tax rates on what is still ag land, but they're not farming. So given the kind of the real estate boom, it'd be really nice to get some information into the hands of realtors. And I know the Department of Ag wouldn't be the only one that's working on this. The Ag Working Group has talked about this because, you know, once ag land gets a big building put on it, it's pretty hard for it to revert back to agricultural uses. So that might be something that we should make in year 1 or 2, year 2 at least, to try to stem the loss of agricultural land in our county.
Okay, so we want that in year 2.
I agree with Jerry too. I mean, it's got to be high in priority. I think the county and state level already has been way behind in prioritizing the education, not only of real estates, but advocating education for watershed protection and management. Because whatever affects Malka, you know, affects Makai. We all know that and we all talk about it, but it's not prioritized. So how do we educate the people, even in the departments? You know, so where do we start? Who are we educating? Who are we advocating for, and who's doing it? I think it should be highly prioritized and should be hand in hand with the realtors. So I seen within 1 and 2 years, it's just my manal.
Year one.
Okay,
I
Year
agree,
one.
one.
All right, and then for these other ones, for the best practices and for water use and water related issues, this is the department providing education. It will probably take a little bit to develop those and get them into a solid form that we can put those out as like media blasts to inform community members in the ag sector and, you know, ag land owners. So do we want to put those in year maybe 4? So we give them ample time to really get that together for those 3? Is that okay?
Sure.
That works.
All right. Okay. The resource regeneration and protection. So we just have, we've already got the waste resource regeneration specialist. Then we've got the develop and fund a county-wide composting system, including plans to evaluate expansions to the district facilities. And then work with legislators to allow commercial composting as an approved activity on agricultural lands.
Legislatures, year one. Move them up.
Okay. And then for the countywide composting facility, realistically, Jerry, what year do you think that would be able to happen? I'm sorry, I'm just asking Jerry because this is like his main thing that he focuses on, but anybody can chime in. I'm sorry.
Realistically, it's probably 3 or 4 years away, but it looks as though the county council and the Department of Environmental Management might actually be starting to make progress on this. We have a Zoom meeting with them, with Rubens from EKO Composting on Monday.
Yay.
First time that we've had people that could all on the computer screen at the same time. So it would still be 3 years to get the funding and the permit set up, but you know, the municipal intention is number 1, and we're starting progress on that.
Okay, so do we want to put that year 3?
Yeah, I think that would be realistic.
Okay. Does anybody disagree with that or have any other thoughts?
I agree.
I agree.
Jennifer,
Yes.
I also talked to Rubens at the eco facility. I think he's going to be out of business at the end. I think he was talking about end of the fiscal year, but I may be wrong. But you notice the new landfill is already being filled. The other thing he mentioned is that, you see, right now he's mixing the human waste with the compostable material. And he was kind of grandfathered in when he told me, and they may not allow that. So I believe the other counties are using anaerobic digesters to break down the human waste.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would love for them to like use it to grow algae and then use that as a biofuel. That would make a lot of sense.
That makes a lot of sense. And you could harvest the algae and compost it.
We'll shout that to the resource and development division.
The county, Rubens told me the county hired a firm to advise them on what's the next step.
Awesome. Okay. All right. So that one's that. Contracts and procurement. Support farm to school feeding efforts. I don't think that there's a ton that would need to be done. I think that could be done in, year 1 or 2, because it's just supporting. What do you guys feel like?
Yeah, early on, it's just support.
Yeah. They could, start the discussion in year 1 and then maybe have some actual actionable steps by year 2 that they could get
Agreed,
into.
yeah. Get them started in year 1 on this.
Sounds good.
Okay. Okay. This one's kind of big. But we're getting really close, you guys, so just bear with me. Okay, so we've got develop a food distribution plan on island and inner island for the whole county. We've got those ones already. Expand Maui, Lanai, and Molokai food hub efforts. Develop a plan to support food system resiliency. Develop programs to support local agricultural product retailers and markets and marketing and procurement programs. Support financial assistance programs for food insecurity at farmers markets. Sorry, this is blocking my. I guess it can. Oh, marketing and procurement co-ops. Sorry. And then support financial assistance programs for food security at farmers markets and retailers, and support farm food safety and product development programs. I think, a lot of these could probably go year 3, 4, 5, except for maybe this, starting on a food distribution and the food insecurity. What do you guys think? I guess it is that one.
Can you hover over? I'm so sorry. Is it 4? Let me look at 4 and 5 if you don't mind.
5.
Right. It seems like anything that's like developing a plan should start early, right? Because the plan is going to take a while. The other ones are going to, some of the other ones are going to fall from having a plan in place. So to me, when I look at a lot of these, it's about developing a plan first, and then the other ones are going to kind of fall in a couple of years after that.
I view the food distribution plan as kind of resulting after the hiring of the food access coordinators. So maybe putting it as year 2, but kind of like priority for those positions.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, agreed.
So both of these plans in year 2.
Agreed.
Agree.
Yes.
Okay, and then we've got the food hub efforts. We've got programs to support local agricultural products, markets, marketing and procurement co-ops, the financial assistance programs, and food safety.
Was number 3 the food hub?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think there's a significant amount of money that's being debated about in the legislature in activities state. So that's a positive thing. That didn't necessarily fall in the aggregate. They could, draft in behind that, right? Or you could say we can push that to later on because there's already a lot of momentum going on.
Yeah, I think definitely year 3 or out would be okay. What do you guys think?
Agree.
That's
Can you
fine.
have over number 2, please?
We got that one already, the food access coordinator positions.
Got that.
And we got that. So I guess the financial assistance, do we want to see that in front of the food hub support?
In front of, yes.
It's pretty important.
I would actually say yes, because if we do have statewide support for food hub efforts, I mean, we'll see how the session goes. But that might not need to be as strong of a priority, the food hubs, so.
So then maybe we put, your 4 or 5 for food hubs. And then for the food safety and product development, do we want to put that year 3, 4, 5?
Possibly year 3. Those are all important things to add value added products. And
Barbara said 3, Lauren said 4.
I would say 4. There has been such a huge effort with farm food safety, with FSMA coming down, that I think a lot of our farmers are really educated at the moment. But I think that it's important that the department has a role in it, but I think it's not necessarily a priority in the first 3 years.
I agree. Well said.
4, year 4.
Right? Anybody else?
Well, I agree too, because the health department and the College of Tropical Ag do have classes on food safety. So it's not like there's nothing out there.
Okay.
that's true.
Okay, and then so for the develop programs to support local agricultural product retailers, markets, and marketing and procurement co-ops.
Maybe 3 or 4, year 3 or 4.
Yeah, I think year 4 would be really good. We can do the financial assistance. I think that comes before in year 3, and then, working to develop like co-ops and things like that is something that can really make a difference and help, but it would come after that, probably be part of the plans and stuff too. So I think putting it in year 4 would be good. What do you guys think?
I'm
That
fine
sounds
with that.
Fine with that?
I agree.
Okay.
it.
All right, and then we've got transportation. There's just coordinate transportation sharing to support the distribution of local products.
Year 2,
Why would you be a farmer if you can't transport your produce?
Well, there's a lot of people like that are on the other islands that have things that are out of their control, and then East Maui has a really big problem. They're farmers, but driving it makes it almost cost prohibitive for them to do that each individually. So creating programs that we can help and kind of set up those systems for those more rural areas will allow them to focus more on their business without them expending a bunch of time and resources when the infrastructure really isn't set up in their favor.
In years past, when we had a farmers cooperative, Rito Express used to transport produce to our co-op. They did that service, but it's gone now. I don't think they do that. We don't have the co-op.
Yeah, and so currently for Molokai, all we have is Young Brothers.
Yes.
And a lot of our farmers have a lot of challenges getting our produce off island to other islands. And so that I think would probably year 2 would be, I would love to see that in year 2 if possible.
I agree that that's a really important one that could make a really big impact. And like Michael Hillinger, I don't know if you guys remember him from the very first meeting, but he has a bunch of refrigerated trucks. And he says he comes out of Hana every single day and they're empty. So it could be as simple as like coordinating a program with that via, another like MEO or MEDB to kind of build that program so that they're not coming out empty and we're able to transport those goods, and then looking at how we can kind of do something similar with like a boat transportation or, Mokulele for, the other islands.
I think it's a really important issue because that way the farmers are spending time farming and growing their food, or taking care of their farms, and they're not out on the roads. If every farmer has to get into a car, into their truck, and drive their product to a distribution center, then it just creates a a big time sink, especially with all the people on the island that, you know, the roads are not easy to get around in. So I really support this in year 2.
Perfect. Does anybody disagree with year 2? Okay, we're good. And then we've got the last one, theft, vandalism, and liability needs for the ag sector. I think this is pretty easy. It could be just a, you know, conversation with the department, the police department, prosecuting attorney, county and state to kind of, you know, bring this. And I think, you know, even just mentioning this to the mayor's administration, I didn't think that they realized this was a problem. So I think this is something that could easily be addressed in year 1 or 2. It wouldn't take much effort. It's more of just a conversation that could make a big impact. What do you guys think?
I think year 1 is good. And I think Kenneth will agree that, you know, the Kula Egg Parks have always had to deal with this kind of theft. And, you know, it really is, you know, it's tragic and it needs to get dealt with.
Okay, year 1, year 2, we got folks?
Year 1, we go meet up with the police department and educate everybody.
Bring
Actually,
donuts.
Jerry and Teresa, Sydney, we're talking about this at Ag Working Group, the last meeting. And you guys remember the scenario she used for the police department, and them kind of considering stealing produce as a Manini thing? What was
Our
it?
avocado trees.
Yeah, can you enlighten everybody?
Well, she was sharing that she called the police because somebody came and stole her avocados. And the police kind of came and kind of snickered at her. And they didn't think it was real important. But then she said, if I was Foodland and somebody stole these many avocados from Foodland, you guys would really be concerned and it wouldn't be funny. They cut down her trees and harvested it off the ground.
Oh my gosh.
They didn't even pick the avos.
That's
Wow.
terrible. So that's not just one crop, that's years.
That's vandalism.
That's forever. And the fine for vandalism, you know, and trespassing is so Manini. I tell the cops all the time, say, forget it. I'm not going to call you. We're just going to use cowgirl justice.
Ah, that's right.
Okay, so hopefully we can educate them in year 1. That is terrible, terrible, terrible.
We have a new police chief, so maybe that will be a good way to introduce introduce him to the problem.
You guys, that is the end of it. And I think we made it like just in time. We've got 3 minutes to spare. I'm going to put this into just like a document. It's going to be really simple. We'll give it, I'll actually give it to the whole group to look over first, so that you guys can see it. And then we'll present to the council members. The only other thing I want to talk about with you guys is beginning the process of trying to pool applicants for the director and deputy director positions. So we do, like, we're going with that proposed code highlights, as that's kind of what we're presenting to Shane and Gabe, and they want to get it drafted into a bill to put into the code. So that is something that people can look at. I'm going to pull it up real quick. So you guys can kind of see where to go to see it. So you just go to MauiFoodSecurityNow.com, you go to the proposed code highlights, you scroll down, and then once you click on this, it's, I think, let's see. Lost it. Here we go. So it starts right here. These are the qualifications. So you can share this with people, and I have a feeling, I don't know if it'll be whatever. They're saying that they don't think people are going to want to apply for this position because there'll be a change in administration. But like I said, both the mayor and the council have to agree on the director and deputy director, right? So there is kind of some guarantee that if the council kind of remains in place, we don't see a lot of those members switching out, they would still have that support. And then if we can kind of, you know, have the support from the other 2 people running, which I think Michael Lena is a current council member. I don't see him voting somebody in and then changing them 6 months out. So maybe just talking with Bison to give whoever gets in there, you know, a fair chance at the 6 months and maybe the next term. Getting people to apply for these positions is going to be super important. And one thing I've seen is that when positions come up from the administration, they will cherry pick a few people out and just put those ones forward. You won't necessarily get to see everyone that's applied. So what I would really like to do is to begin pulling resumes from people that are interested in these positions, people that we would like to see that are qualified and really in the ag sector, boots on the ground, people we know are going to do it justice, to start pulling those resumes so that we can put them forward. Like, these are people that are interested in the position. If you can let us know when that position is open for application, then we can make sure that they apply. And that way the council members know that there are, you know, these people out there, so that if they only get 1 or 2 people that weren't in those put forward, they know that there are other applicants out there, and can have that leverage just in case they might try to put somebody in there that was against the department from the start. I don't hope they do that, but I don't necessarily put it past either. So that's kind of what I would like you guys to kind of start doing is, you know, considering yourself. Is this stuff something that I would be willing to step into? Go ahead, Chloe.
Can you drop this link in the chat?
Yes.
Model.
And then if not, who do we know that would be a good position, and start kind of compiling those. And I think it's as simple as, you know, just putting together pooled resumes that we can put forward to them to know who's interested in the positions.
So Jen, are you, might you be interested?
No. I said from the very beginning, I wanted to do this without any agenda. I have a job, I have an organization to run. I've given 2 years of my life to get this going, and I don't feel like it would be right for me to step into a paid position. I feel like that would be unfair. I feel like there are people, I've only been on Maui for 10 years. I feel like there are people that are much more qualified with ag degrees, and they're a lot more politically correct than I am. I have a mouth on me, so I don't think I'm personally the best person, because I can't always like filter what I say. I appreciate that, but I think that there's much more qualified people than me.
Okay, just wanted to double check. And thank you
Shane
for all
asked me
your
the
work
same
on
thing,
this.
and I was like, Shane, no. From the get-go, I said I didn't want to do that. I feel like it would be breaking trust for me to do that, and I don't want to do that.
Okay, well, thank you so much for all this hard work that you've done. It's really a tremendous blessing to everyone here on Maui, and agriculture and the land and the water and everything and people.
Same, you
So,
guys, like, you guys are all here with me. You guys have been putting in these hours. A lot of you guys have been fighting these fights a lot longer than me. I'm just super impatient, and I learned how to do legislation. So that was the only difference. I was like, wait, they taught me how to do this, then I can do it.
Well,
great.
it sounds like you would be perfect. So you should probably, unless you can come up with some names of someone who would be better, you should chuck your name in the hat.
Okay, well, let's see what you guys can come up with first. I'm also gonna go to HFUU and kind of ask them to start pulling applicants. I'm gonna beg Uncle Bobby, maybe he'd be interested.
Oh, he's good.
I've been begging Hoku out too. He keeps telling me no, but yeah, I think there are definitely qualified people out there, and yeah, it's our job. And you know, it doesn't necessarily, they don't have to be from Maui. They could be doing food work, you know, on Oahu, and have a clear understanding of these things too. So there's a lot of really intelligent people that care a lot. So just reaching out to your networks and start pulling those resumes. The only other thing I ask of you guys, and then I will send out information from the meeting with Shane and Gabe. I'll send this out, and then anytime we get the schedule for the meetings for the ag committee that any of this is going to be heard, I'll put that out to the whole group too, along with kind of like a testimony template.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Okay, I'll stick around a little bit after in case anybody has anything that they want to discuss. But other than that, you guys have a wonderful evening and weekend. And thank you all so much. I can't believe we got all through this in one night. It's amazing. Yay!
Yay, good
Amber.
job,
Thanks,
everybody.
Jen.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Aloha.
you.
Aloha.
Thank you so much.